Hi, my name is Marjorie Murray. I attend Liberty University Online, Human Services 508. Today's date is March the 8th, 2013. I will be speaking briefly to you about interpersonal communication. Next slide. Who am I? I am a daughter. I am a sister. I am a friend. I am a student. I am a helper. I am a princess. I am a treasure. I am a child. I am a soul. I am a Christian. Next slide. What is interpersonal communication? Interpersonal communication is the process of sending and receiving information between two or more people. Simply defined, interpersonal communication is exchange message between sender and a receiver, containing ideas and feelings mixed together. Next slide. My overarching goals is study, listen, and pray. We study to gain knowledge of information so we can interact with others more effectively. When we listen, we gain a better understanding of what's being said. Listening is not the same as hearing. Taking time to listen carefully to what others are saying through their verbal and nonverbal communication. When we pray, God is a hard teacher. You know why? Because he gives the tests before the lessons. But he always is the kindest teacher, because no matter how hard the test is, he still gives you the answer. Next slide. Enlarging the conversation, the number one communication tool. We need more than to learn how to communicate more effectively. We need to learn how to enlarge our conversation. This encompasses all the dynamics of interpersonal communication and dialogue that occur in a relationship. In other words, it bridges the gap between a person's inner and outer world, consequently bridging the gap between reality and the ideal. Next slide. When I took the interpersonal communication skill test, my result was a 74, which stands for insightfulness. Interprets other people's words in action and seeing things from their perspective. Empathetic, walking in other shoes, pay more attention to messages versus how it is received. For the most part, you can sense what others are thinking and will likely adjust your behavior accordingly if a person you're conversing with seems confused or mishap uncomfortably. Next slide. My background and behavior blend. This is expected of me. My personality type was described as DIC or DCI or IDC or ICD or CDI or CID. People expect me to be determined, inspiring, and contemplating. This is me, very sure about myself, secure and stable, confident, very demanding, talkative, and a positive persuader. I had to really understand my behavior blend first before I can understand myself, my action, and how to relate to others and their action. While we are all blends of characteristics, certain ones will tend to be more apparent than others. I had to learn to listen to a person and ask questions when I did not understand one's language. By doing this, I was able to enlarge the conversation at hand. Next slide. My background in behavior blending conversation. Negative. No desire of close friendship. I do not respond well with those who are weak or unmotivated, and I have to learn to guard myself. My ego and pride can be my downfall. Next slide. My background in behavior blending conversation, positive. I do not want to manage a conflict. I want to resolve it so people walk better than when they walked into it. I have learned to listen and ask questions about things I am unsure about. Give everyone a chance without being judgmental. Next slide. Potential barriers. Emotion, stress, lack of knowledge. Your emotion can be a barrier to communication if you are engrossed in your emotion for some reason. In such cases, you tend to have trouble listening to others, understanding the message conveyed to you. When a person is stressed, he may find it difficult to understand the message, leading to communication distortion and our psychological frame of mind depends on our belief, experience, and goals and value. With the lack of subject knowledge, the sender can misunderstand the message sent, and this can lead to a barrier of effective communication. Next slide. Principal barrier of effective communication. I chose noise, poor feedback, and lack of empathy. Next slide. What is noise? Noise is a random or persistent disturbance that obscures, reduces, or confuses the clarity or quality of the message being transmitted. In other words, it is interference that takes place between the sender and the receiver. To overcome the noise barrier to effective communication, one must discover its source, and this may not be easy. Next slide. The feedback problem. Feedback is reaction. Without it, the sender of the message cannot know whether the recipient has received the entire message or grasped its intents. There is no feedback in a one-way conversation. Feedback not only regulates the communication process, but reinforces and stimulates it. Next slide. Empathy and other relationships. Lack of empathy can create a barrier between the sender and the receiver. Empathy, as defined in a dictionary, is understanding so intimate that the feelings, thoughts, and motive of one are readily comprehended by another. The ability to empathize with someone else may not be easy. If you are to see things from another viewpoint, you have to put aside your own prejudice and preconception. Next slide. How do we overcome barriers? First step, what's the problem? Second step, why is it occurring? Third step, what are we going to do about it? And finally, step 4, is it working? Next slide. What type of listener are you? Are you a complainer, just a facts, a faker, a wanderer, or eager to express? Next slide. Making meaning together. Inhaling and exhaling. This process is one that is practiced and developed through communication. We express and share our ideals and feelings. Listening is usually the most difficult aspect of communication. Stewart 2012 uses the term inhaling and exhaling of being a breakdown or organized, a continuous, changing, multidimensional, often confusing process called communication. Unlike inhaling, I think that exhaling can allow one to communicate from an interpersonal level, allowing the communicator to be open, expressing themselves by forecasting their individuality through ideals and feelings. Next slide. My plan or action. Improve my listening skills, be attentive, be interested in others' need, don't forget who I am, and set ground rules. Next slide. My final thought. One of the things that I think is vitally important as Christians is to do a renewal of our mind. The word says, don't copy the behavior and custom of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Romans 12:2. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Have a great day. My name is Marjorie Murray.